Good afternoon.
Hello, everybody.
We're out here on a beautiful sunny day,
Beautiful day.
and we're going to do another Fun Fact Friday today. And what are you going to talk about today?
We're going to talk a little bit about water on Ocracoke. And as many of our folks know who visit on Ocracoke, up until 1977, all drinking water on Ocracoke came from rainwater off the roof into cisterns. And we may talk about cisterns in another Fun Fact Friday. But right now I want to talk about groundwater, because you can also get water out of the ground on Ocracoke. And people are sometimes really surprised at how shallow the groundwater is. And Amy, let me just walk over here. I made this diagram. Can you see that okay?
Yep, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit because there's some shadow on it, but yep, there it is.
So here's a traditional pitcher pump. And everybody on Ocracoke had one on their cistern so they could get water out of there. Usually had one in the kitchen so they could pump water up at the kitchen. But they also had one out in the yard. And you'll see several around the village on pipes in people's yards. There's one down there at Lida Frida's house. But anyway, this is the pitcher pump on the platform. This is the surface, the ground level. And usually the pump sits about 3 feet above the ground. But below the ground, about 4 to 5 feet below the ground, underground, there's a freshwater lens that's 10 to 15 feet deep that sits on the top of the salt water, because the freshwater is lighter and floats. And it's all over the island is this freshwater lens under the ground, about 5 feet, something like that.
And sometimes it's closer. Isn't that how some of the horses
Well, yeah,
get their
it's
water?
sometimes closer, and it depends on how much rain we've had, because the rainwater seeps down into the ground and stays there. And so this pump, I put this here in 2008.
This house traditionally had a pump.
It did, and this was the original pump from the house, but it had been removed, and I put it, and there's the pipe. It goes down into the ground, and the point at the bottom there is called a well point that you can still buy on the internet. You can find them, different hardware stores sell them. The point is usually sunk 5 to 8 feet below the surface, and that'll provide it'll get into the groundwater. And the groundwater is not really potable. We never drank that water. We always used the cisterns for drinking and cooking, but you could water your plants in your garden. And we used to put a big galvanized tub out in that little path behind the village Craftsmen, and the wild horses would walk through there, and they knew there was that tub of water, and they'd all stop and drink from that tub of water, and that was groundwater. And we'd sometimes bathe in it if the cistern water was low, but it had an odor. It was yellow because of all the live oak trees and roots that were in it. And nowadays, I'd be really cautious about drinking it because there's so many septic systems on the island.
Well, when you bathed in it, I guess your parents had to decide if you smelled worse or if the water smelled worse.
Yeah, well, yeah, it wasn't fun to bathe in that water, but if that's all you had, you did it. So as far as I know, and I may be wrong, I think this may be the only working water pump tapped into groundwater on Ocracoke. So I'm going to pump some water up with it, and it may not work at first, but I'll explain that. Let's see if it works. Oh,
It sounds like it's working.
It's working. Almost working. Not quite working.
Oh, it's got a little coming out.
Yeah, but I'm going to make it work.
Okay.
I don't know how many of you listening have heard the old country folk song, Desert Pete. It's about somebody in the desert that is thirsty, and he comes upon a pump out in the desert, and there's a note next to a can of water, and it says, "Don't drink that water. You need to use that water to prime the pump. Once you've primed it, you'll get all the water you want. But if you drink that water, then the pump won't work. So usually takes a little priming. There it comes.
Look at that.
That's all coming out of the ground. And basically unlimited amount of water that you get.
And we can water plants and
Water plants.
the pets, water the pets. It looks nice and actually,
It's a little yellowish because of the tree roots.
but it's quite, that's awesome. Cool. Fun Fact Friday.
There you go.
If we run out of water, we're coming to Philip's house.
And if anybody knows of another working hand pump on the island, let us know.
And are we going to talk any about the water plant? Did you already say?
I didn't mention that, but
once the water plant came, these became obsolete.
these were obsolete. The cisterns became obsolete. The reverse osmosis desalination plant that provided municipal water to the village was built in 1977.
And we'll talk a little bit about that at another Fun Fact Friday. So all right, there you go, your little water lesson, Ocracoke water lesson for today. Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye, y'all.